The Dad.
Rock and roll!
Well, judging from the carving on your desk, it looks like his name is Ozzy.
Yes, and apparently he rules.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
In 2004, the Walt Disney Company under Michael Eisner bought the Jim Henson Company and had basically carte blanche to do whatever they wanted with the IP. This was at a time when wokeness and that kind of degeneracy was not in the lexicon of the American culture. Bob Iger, a man who prides himself in being a wheeler dealer, bought Lucasfilm. And the story I'm going to tell you guys is the difference between Michael Eisner and Bob Iger. Couldn't be bigger. Bob Iger follows trends. The trend after Obama's 2012 election was to more diversity and inclusion, which basically ended up attacking IPs that Disney owned. And the first one I want to talk about is the ABC new one, Muppet Show, that came out in 2015, and they canceled it in March of 2016 because it was horrible. And the reason why is because they basically changed characters. Now, when Jim Henson died, the characters that he portrayed were going to be different because different people were going to play them. That's not the problem. The problem is the wokeness that happened and the fact that they took the central relationship. This is Steve Whitmer, who played Kermit the Frog since Jim Henson died for like over 20 years. And he was upset, very upset, because what they did was they took the central relationship in the franchise and destroyed it. And the show wasn't a success because of it. And they fired Steve Whitmer in 2017 for unacceptable business conduct. And that basically was, you guys are ruining this character. The integrity's gone, and I'm calling you out for it. Now, this is a big deal because if you're going to buy intellectual property like Michael Eisner did, and then have a bunch of buffoons screw it up, the fans are going to be angry. They're going to walk away. Again, the show was canceled in 2016, in March of 2016, because no one watched it. And, you know, when you've got Kermit the Frog, he's the central character in the franchise. He is the one all the chaos whirls around. He has a relationship with Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy is, I think, probably one of the most popular characters in the Muppets, and that relationship was central, and it was hilarious. Piggy did a lot of things that people would find were sketchy. I remember in the Muppets Farmhouse Christmas Special with the Fraggles, she stayed in New York to buy Christmas presents for people, got caught in a blizzard, and Kermit thought she didn't care. And he was worried about her. Now, she shows up at the end, and everyone's hallelujah, yay. Piggy isn't a bad person. Piggy is just, she's a diva. She's a movie star in her own mind. And she's got her thing going. And she and Kermit have this relationship. For the show, it worked out quite well. I mean, everybody laughed. I mean, you know, Piggy was basically the analogy of a old school movie star like Joan Crawford or Betty Davis or Paulette Goddard, any of them, Gloria Swanson. All they can think of is themselves. And it's, to me, rather hilarious when I think about it, how funny and hilarious the character was, and how grounded Kermit is in their relationship. And when The Muppet Show came out in 2015, everybody was excited. And then afterwards, they were mad and they quit watching. Why? Because somebody in the Disney hierarchy allowed for them to break up so they could bring in another character. It didn't work. People were pissed. And Steve Whitmer, who, like I said, had been doing Kermit's voice since Jim Henson passed away, was horrified. Everybody was horrified, right? And it didn't work. It failed. And it failed because the integrity of the characters, both Piggy and Kermit, was gone. And Whitmer was not about to let any of that stuff occur without calling Disney and the people behind the show out. You can't replace Miss Piggy with a character no one knows, no one cares about, who is basically the, I would say, woke icon that people watch. It didn't work. I mean, look at her. You know, Piggy had personality, and Kermit and Piggy were together, and breaking them up was, I think, the first instance where wokeness and that kind of diabolical bullshit showed up in The Muppet Show. And it started in The Muppet Show on ABC. Let's go for...
Dad, when are you going to stop blighting the environment with this atrocity? My God, can't you see that it wants to die? Let it go. Even at the trusty adage, starve of cold, disgust of fever.
What an odd combination of odors. Smells like a fish died and all the other fish sent flowers.
Gargle, google, goo.
What?
Now you know how it feels. What are you talking about?
Okay, so let's go further. Character integrity is everything. So we talked about the loss of integrity with Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, and how Kermit's voice actor, the puppeteer who played him, got fired because he called out Disney to its face about what they were doing. Let's go to Star Wars. All right. And Disney not understanding what they bought. Where did these three characters end up? And what the fuck did Disney think they were doing by allowing Kathleen Kennedy to do what she did? Now look, it's a business decision, and it's the same thing with the Muppets. Bob Iger and looked at it and said, we want to make our own Star Wars. Let's do a soft reboot, and let's have our own characters. There's some quibbling about does George get 25% every time they use Han, Luke, or Leia. I don't really care. Disney can afford to pay him that. Okay. And what they did was destroy these characters. And when The Force Awakens came out, Disney, I think, had a false sense of optimism. Because the movie might have made $2 billion. The merchandise wasn't selling because the new characters were not popular. No one wanted them. I don't know anybody who wanted them. We expected Han Solo to be older, wiser, sort of like the father figure. Instead, we get drunk, deadbeat dad Han Solo. Leia, Kennedy's avatar there. And then, of course, hermit Luke. I mean, look at the look on his face here. You want to know why Mark Hamill's such a nut? The Last Jedi. And the fact that character integrity meant absolutely nothing to Kathleen Kennedy because she's a political animal. She doesn't know how to write stories, and I've talked to people who know her who've said they accused her to her face of not knowing how to tell a story. Or I called her stupid to her face. I'm not kidding. This is something a friend of mine told me who used to work for Steven Spielberg. And, subverting expectations is not preserving the integrity of any of the characters. And again, drunk deadbeat dad Han Solo, Leia, whatever the fuck that was, and then hermit Luke, coward Luke. None of this made any sense, right? And it pissed the fans off. We expected at the end of Return of the Jedi to see them older, wiser, and like being the advisory committee for these new characters, their children. Instead, we get, what the fuck? The integrity, and it's not just the integrity of the characters. It's the integrity of the entire story. You cannot take The Force Awakens and say it works. It doesn't. You might like it, and, you might be a millennial saying, let's buy Star Wars. No one gives a shit, okay? It sucks, okay? You can't do that. And, the idea that it's supposed to reflect society perfectly is stupid. Okay, the reason why it's stupid is because it's a fairy tale. It's a Western. It's a fairy tale. Look, the Western in American culture, when you look at it, is a bit. It's a sweeping story of cowboys, cavalry, gunfighters, gamblers, Native American tribes, etc. Right? It is not a fairy tale, but there's something truth. There's truth to these, whether they're true to life, or fictionalized stories that John Ford put up on the movie screen for people to enjoy. You cannot undermine that and make the audience go, wow, this is great. Nobody did. All right. If the Force Awakens was a false sense of success, because again, like I said, the merchandise didn't sell, then The Last Jedi was the thing that brought all the problems, the lack of integrity for the characters and the story that George put together. All the problems came to the forefront when Rian Johnson said we're going to subvert expectations. That was not really a cool thing for anybody to be saying at the time. And again, what he did was the same thing that the people who were doing the Muppet Show for ABC did, and they fucked it up. And now Rian Johnson fucks it up again. Because the second Death Star was blown up and they killed the Emperor. Well, actually, they didn't realize it, but Anakin Skywalker Darth Vader killed the Emperor. And you have to think about where they were at that ending and why the sequels didn't work. It's because the integrity of these characters and the story that George wrote was destroyed. And again, like I said, this is the same thing that happened with the Muppets, and it's the same thing that happened with Indiana Jones. And then Kennedy fucked up Indiana Jones because she wanted to take the franchise and make it into a girls' franchise for Indiana Jones, starring Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And that lost money. There's a reason why Kathleen Kennedy said, I'm not involved in Lucasfilm decision-making. I haven't been for 2.5 years back in January. Because she was basically kicked out. So if you want to understand why it kept happening at Disney, it's because Iger allowed it. Iger didn't care enough about the integrity of the characters and the creativity of that integrity and the integrity of the stories from, the Muppets to Star Wars, right? So this was something that came to me. I saw a video about how the Muppets changed. And when the story of Steve Whitmer was told, I was like, okay, now I get it. That's why they canceled it in 2016, is because it was terrible. They fucked up the central reason why anybody's going to watch the show is because Piggy and Kermit are hilarious. And I'm again, the same thing occurs with Star Wars, Indiana Jones, because the integrity of the characters and the story didn't matter as much to Bob Iger and, at the time, Alan Horn as seeing billions of dollars fall into Disney's lap. It didn't work. It stopped working. In fact, people rebelled against it. All right? Because the lack of integrity was the biggest problem I think people had without even realizing it. When you look at Return of the Jedi, it's the end of the beginning. Not, let's, take everything that George did, tip it over into a garbage can and start over again with a bunch of untalented writers and terrible cast and directors that had no business being part of this franchise. From J.J. Abrams' outright ignorance and his willingness to go along with, Larry Kasdan's bullshit, to Rian Johnson's narcissism, and Disney going, okay, fine, whatever. And then, hear rumors that Iger was horrified at the reaction of people towards Last Jedi. For fuck's sake, you've been in the movie business long enough to know, Bob, okay? So this has been at least an 11-year issue with the Walt Disney Company of allowing people who should not be involved to make decisions that undermine the integrity of the characters that the IP has and the story that the IP is. So this was something that I thought I should talk about, and I hope I kind of explained things to you guys a little bit, and I want you to think about it. Where's the integrity if the story doesn't continue and the characters are ruined? Their integrity is gone. Their agency is gone. This is Steph, signing out. See you around the galaxy.